All right, we're live.
So I know everybody's fall fishing now. I'd love to know in the chat how many people have watched at least a dozen videos on how to catch bass in the fall, whether it be the top 5 best places to go, top 5 baits to use. There's been some kind of content you probably watched around fall time fishing. And so I hate to ruin your story, but unless that fall fishing video is specific to the type of body of water that you fish, unless that fall fishing video is specific to the species of bass that you fish for, it's probably a waste of your time. So what I'm doing here in the app is over the last month, going into November, we've been talking about fall fishing, but we've been breaking it down specifically for everybody's style of water, everybody's area of the country. If y'all remember, about 2 weeks ago, we did a live with James Linder, and we talked about fishing up north on glacial lakes. Here's the cool thing about glacial lakes. Glacial lakes and then lakes in Florida are very, very similar. Most all those lakes have grass. Most all those lakes are flat and shallow. Even though they can be a little bit different in species, they have a lot of similarities. I know that sounds weird, but if you've ever fished in the extreme northern part of the country, if you ever fished in Florida, you know that they're very, very similar. Now we've talked about reservoirs a little bit, and we're going to continue that conversation about reservoirs. In the coming weeks, we're going to talk about fall fishing on tidal fisheries. We're going to talk about deltas, and there were 6 bodies of water that we identified in the beginning of this series on fall fishing. But tonight we're going to talk about reservoirs, and more specifically with reservoirs, how to catch bass in the creeks on reservoirs. And so, Mike, you can pull up that first slide on creek fishing. There's 3 things that we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to cover in this lesson that will give you some insight on how to catch bass in the creeks. Here's the 3 things. So when we're talking about creek fishing in the fall, number one, we're going to talk about why are we going to be fishing creeks in the first place. For what? Why do we need to fish creeks? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about where to fish in the creeks, because I promise you what you're probably thinking about when I say fish creeks is not what you're about to see and what you're about to expect. When I say fish the creeks, good buddy, your boys talking about fishing the crack. Me and my boys, we call it the crack. I ain't talking about just some random creek on the lake. When I say the creek, I'm literally talking about the creek. I'm going to show you what that looks like, where it is on your lake, and show you some examples of what that looks like on the map. And we're going to show you a couple video clips too. Michael, I'm going to have to jump to YouTube and do the screen share in the middle of this. So hold on to your missiles. And then the last part, the part that everybody loves, y'all get the most excited out of, is what baits to fish when you're doing this. So that sound like a plan? We'll jump right into it. Mike, I didn't even check to see what if we got our slides in the right numbers. Just jump to the second one, and if it's the wrong one, then I'll tell you what the right one is. I probably should have double checked that before I got into this. It should say why fish creeks. That's it. Let's go. Okay. So, Michael, we're doing me in the corner. This I kind of made them where we had a little spot there in the top right hand corner. If it works, does that work? Yeah. That looks. Oh, that was perfect, boy. Look at that. Okay, why are we going to fish creeks? Why are we even talking about this, Brian? I'm about to tell you. Why are we going to fish creeks? So here's the interesting thing. I'm telling you to fish the creeks, but in all actuality, I don't care where you fish. I don't care where you live in the country. If you fish in a creek, most likely it has the smallest population of bass in that entire body of water. If you're fishing a creek, just by pure science, it's going to be the smallest population of fish in any reservoir. But that's not where it stops. You're probably thinking, well, why would you tell me to go somewhere where there's the least amount of fish, you dodo bird? This is why I'm telling you that. Because oftentimes, even though a creek has the smallest population, it has the largest population of active bass. When I say active bass, that means bass that are feeding, that you can catch, it doesn't make a hill of bean difference. There's just 45 million bass on the main lake right now. But if there's number one, if the lake conditions aren't conducive to catching them, if you got to sift through too much water, if it's too windy, if you're in a kayak perhaps, that might not be the best option for you. Maybe what the main lake has is not the best structure that applies to your strengths as a fisherman. We'll talk about all of that. Maybe the main lake is not a good deal for you. However, for a lot of us, it might make sense for us to fish the creeks because even though it's a smaller population of fish, the number of fish that are biting out of that small population is oftentimes bigger or easier. So that's why we're going to fish the creek. Does that make sense? Throw me some comments in the chat. If it doesn't, I'll be watching the chat. I'll get here in the app now. Throw me some questions. Throw me some comments if that doesn't make sense to you, because it can be confusing. All right, second bullet point. What's something that we know about creeks? What's something that we talked about? If you're new to the Straight Up Fishing app, we've been doing this Fall Fishing Academy since last fall. And you really need to go back and this is an ongoing saga. It's like a soap opera. Every year, there's so much information that we take in. It's not wise for you to get all the information in one season. And then also, it's dang near impossible. Too much information. So many people are so hungry for information without experiencing, without getting on the water and doing stuff. You need bits of information. You need a nugget on Monday, and you need to chew on that nugget. You need to rehearse that nugget, and then practice it on your weekend fishing trips. So many times we do a live on Monday, then we do something else through the week. You watch a workshop, and then we do another live on Friday, and then you watch a YouTube video on the way to the lake. Get so much information that you really ain't got nothing. All you got is just a bunch of tangled up mess. Take this nugget. Okay, go back, look at some of those videos that we talked about. One thing we talk about with creeks is creeks have more flow. If you've got more flow in the back of a creek, that's going to have more oxygen. When I say flow, that's going to be from rainfall. Oftentimes you have a little bit more current. You might have a little bit more moving water. What does moving water do? That turns over and mixes oxygen into the water. You got more oxygen in the water, you got more active fish because you got more algae and plankton, which means there's going to be more bait fish. It's just a healthier place for fish to live that time of the year. So they're going to be more active and available for you to catch. Why is that important? Because oftentimes on the main lake, specifically in the fall, on reservoirs, it's so precise, you have to be so on point, that oftentimes that might not be the best place for you to catch fish because there's so much dead water. Going to these creeks is going to put us in closer proximity. I'm going to talk about that here in the next couple bullet points. This next one is very, very important. Next point that I'm going to talk about is very, very important. Make sure you take notes. Screenshot this, do whatever. Screenshot this on your phone so you have it. Sometimes we'll get a PDF that we'll post in the community the day after live. Well, just screenshot this so you'll have it with you so you can get it now. Creek fishing is target oriented. For a lot of you, it's going to be easier for you in the fall. You've got to learn to make fishing easy for you. This is the scary thing about watching YouTube videos. When you watch a YouTube video and a guy pulls out a jerkbait on a main lake point, what you didn't see was the hours and hours and hours that it took him to find that specific point to catch bass on it. Most of you, I know most of the people in my group, you're my age and older. You got a lot of stuff going on. You don't spend that much time on the water. And so you think that you're going to go out there in the fall, which is the toughest time of the year to fish. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care where you live. They go to the fall feed. Bull crap. Fall feed is bull crap. Okay? It's the hardest time of the year to catch bass. Most of you need a visual target to be able to catch fish. That may be something as simple as docks. That could be something as simple as a bridge. Maybe something as simple as some rocks. That could be something as simple as a laydown. You need a visual target because you got 6 hours before your wife calls you and say, we got to go to a birthday party. You got 2 hours before you got to go to the soccer game. You don't have time to go over 30,000 points in a reservoir, a 50,000 acre reservoir. You don't have that much time. So, with that being said, creek fishing is more target oriented. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that when we get to the video clips a little bit later. And so if you like power fishing, if you like flipping, if you like cranking, that's the place for you to go. I often talk, again, if you're new to the app, I have a series here in the app where I talk about how to break down new water. And one of the things we talk about when breaking down new water is when you go fishing, you need to be building skills because you're going to use those. You need to be getting a perfection at certain lures, at certain techniques, because you can use that to sift through water extremely fast. How do pros break down water really fast? They have skills, they have lures that they're really good at, and they find water to match those baits, to match those techniques. So for you guys that are power fishermen, you're used to more stained water, you're used to fishing visual targets. This is going to be the fall fishing video for you. Visual targets, how to flip wood, how to fish docks, how to fish bridges, how to fish depressions, laydowns, bushes, undercut banks. These are all elements that you're going to have in a river situation or in a creek situation. So this fall fishing video is for y'all. Later on, we're going to talk about fishing grass, and later on, we'll talk about fishing deep. And that's going to be for a different set of anglers, but it's very important for you to get some good knowledge about what you're good at and what you have confidence at. Okay, I know there's a group of anglers that just went to Lake Guntersville this past weekend, and that's a big lake. I think it's 50,000 acres. How are you going to start breaking that down? You can't watch every YouTube video on there and do what everybody says on YouTube. The way you make Guntersville really small is you're really good at throwing a chatterbait, and you open your eyes to water, to creeks, to bays, to main lake ledges that are conducive to you catching bass on a chatterbait. It goes from 50,000 acres to 1,000 acres really fast that way. So creek fishing is target oriented, and it's going to appeal to you guys that are more conducive to fishing power fishing techniques. Secondly, I know we have a ton of kayakers in our community. We have kayakers. This lesson is for you, especially if you fish reservoirs. This one is going to be for you. Why is that? Everything is in close proximity. When you go to a creek, that's water that's not accessible oftentimes by bigger boats. Sometimes it's accessible, but a lot of fishermen don't have the navigational know-how to access a lot of these areas because sometimes it takes patience. You hear a lot of times kayakers say, well, I can get my kayak in places that these big boats can't get. Bull crap. You'd be surprised where I can put that 20-foot Falcon. The issue is a lot of boaters don't have patience to figure out how to access these waters. And we need to talk about that in this conversation too, because navigating and accessing these waters takes patience, know-how, and research to fish creeks. If it's knee deep, I know you won't believe this, if it's as deep as my knees, that 20-foot, 3,000-pound boat can get there. I may not get there easy. It may take, but I can put that boat, as long as I have knee-deep water, I can access it. I can do a lot of things that those kayaks can do. But if you are a kayaker, if you are a small boat person, if you are a tiny boat guy, if you are a jumbo boat person, this is a lesson for you. If you fish reservoirs, you should be trying this in the fall, and more specifically on the front end of fall. That transition from summer to where it's still hot, but yet the days are getting shorter. You get a few cool mornings every once in a while. Creek fishing is at best at that time. Okay, this lesson is also for you guys in the South. You fish for largemouth. If you like fishing stained water, clear water scares you a little bit. This is where you want to start creek fishing. I think the next slide, Michael, is this where we start to get into areas to fish, or what's next? I don't even remember. Okay, moving right along here. Let's talk about this. So, Michael, make me a little smaller. You might can even take me off just for a second here so they can get a full picture of what's going on. Because what I want to talk about here is kind of under my picture. a little bit, or smaller or something. Yeah, that's fine. Just leave it like that. So this is Clark's Hill that you're looking at right here. This is a reservoir right here close to my house. Fisted a bunch, and it's one of the places where I learned a lot of these things I'm going to talk about today were experiences that happened on this body of water right here. Clark's Hill is one of the biggest man-made reservoirs east of the Mississippi at 70 plus thousand acres. And it is one of my favorite places to creek fish. So when I say creek fishing, I want to know if you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. So, Michael, they can't see my cursor, can they? I really want them to be able to see my cursor.
No, they can't.
Let's see. What can I do? You know what? I really need to be able to do this. I'm going to pull up that. I'm going to pull up that and share my screen because I really need to be able to. I didn't think about that. That's my fault. I should have thought about that a little bit beforehand. I want to be able to show you. I want to be able to kind of point around and so you can see exactly. Just be patient with me. Hold your horses, y'all. Y'all look good at that. You done got it. I got you now, so you're just gonna have to hold on. I want you to be able to see what I'm talking about. Public view link. No, that's not what we want to do. The presentation link. Okay, we're gonna present. Okay, let's see. And we're gonna go back here. I'm gonna go to share screen. I want y'all to be able to see what I'm talking about. I need to be able to point around a little bit. No, not this one, right? Okay. Okay. Okay, y'all see that, right? Can you see my cursor
Yes, they
thing moving
can.
around here? That looks good. They can see that, Mark? All
They
right.
should be able to.
Now, this is Clark's Hill, like I mentioned. I hope so. Anyway, let's see. I got my app open. It's not playing because the sound usually. Yeah, I see it. Okay. This is what I want y'all to look at. When I say creek fishing, I'm not talking about this right in here. I'm not talking about, I mean, yes, a little bit. But how could I tell when I look at this map, how can I tell a creek has flow? Give me one educated answer on how I know that I have a creek that has flow. Because if I know if it has flow, I know it has oxygen. If I know if it has oxygen, there's a good chance it's going to be active fish because there's going to be more bait. There's going to be more. Let me give you a hint. There'll be more nutrient filled water. What on this map says, hey, that area looks real nutrient filled? Is it this? Is it this? This over here? Close when we get over here, ain't we? What about this over here? These aerial images, they're the cheat code. It's telling you everything you need to know. Look how clear this water is. Is that the kind of creek we want to be fishing? In the fall time, probably not the most, not the best one. What about over here, Parksville? Yeah, not really. It's more like a bay. What about right here, Wildwood? It's a creek, but man, I don't see much change. Doesn't look like it's much flow. Well, Brian, how do you know it has flow? Look at this over here. Look how this stains up. Further I go up, it looks how much more it stains. They got stains. I mean, when it's very turbid water, very volatile, a lot of rainfall, a lot of flow. When I get into this part, it lets me know. Look at this right here. And this is the same thing. I'll go back so you can see. So above this bridge, I think it's Raysville Bridge is right here. This is above Raysville. Look how stained that water is compared to that. See how clear this is? Clear, clear, clear. I said you need some turbid water. Now we're getting into that. Why do we want that? One thing I like about this, when you start creek fishing in the fall, one thing you're going to look for is dirtier water. Why do we do that? What are we looking for dirtier water? I already talked about the fact that that's indication that you have flow. But secondly, looking for that dirtier water. Hey, and this let me stop right there. This is why I'm breaking down each area of the country and each style Brunetti, if he looks for dirty water in Florida on those grass lakes, it's almost a guarantee there will not be fish there. Where I live in the Carolinas, on a reservoir with no grass and wood, stained water puts the fish in position better for me. Stained water is a sign of health. If you live in the Northeast, you see stained water. Really, if we're being honest, any lake that has grass, if it has stained water, that's usually a negative. For the most part, any grass fishery that has grass in it, any grass fishery that has stained water, it's typically bad to have stained water. Fact check me on that. If Kevin Skavinsky or Mark Jonas or any of my guys from up north or Barty, go to Champlain and look for some dirty water and let me know how that works out. Go to anywhere, go to Okeechobee, look for some dirty water. Let me know how that works out. Not saying you won't catch nothing, but it's very unlikely. But when you come to South Carolina, when you come to Georgia, when you come to Alabama, when you in the Midwest, Oklahoma, Texas, North Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, when you get watercolor that looks like this, you're talking about something. Now, buddy, I'm getting ready to butter them biscuits. Why is that? Well, when I get this color water, I know that I've got flow coming in here. Secondly, stained water in our fisheries positions fish to where we can catch them. The stained water puts them shallower. It puts them on targets because we have largemouth that like to sit behind things and jump out behind them and eat their prey, whether that be shad, whether it be brim, crappie, panfish. Crawdad. Something in behavior, which puts them in position for us to be able to catch them better. Okay? So when I'm talking about fishing creeks, we're talking about these upper stretches, and they're usually dead giveaways on the aerial image because you'll see the watercolor change much in the way that you see this. Clear, 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 clear. You get up here around Raysville, look at it, starting to stain up. Oh, get way up here. Look at that. So as this water gets more stained, it's going to put these fish on visual targets in any of these little pockets, fingers, points, islands, any kind of wood, any kind of rock, anything that is in the water is going to position them better. Makes it easier for us to catch them in that limited time that we have on the water. Here's another part on Clark's Hill right here. Let's look at this. So you can see this is the dam. We need to talk about that too, because dams kind of fit in. That might need to be a complete different lesson. I would love that. I've reached out to Dustin Cannell. He's probably the world's best at fishing behind dams. I need to reach out to him again about this. I had him on the hook about this earlier this spring, going into summer, and just tournaments got in the way. But look at this. You see how clear that water is right in here? Look how clear, clear, clear. It's even clear up here. Why is that? It's the water coming from Lake Russell Dam. Clear water pushing in. Why is this muddy? Oh, it's because we have flow. Look at this river, the Broad River coming into the system here, bringing in all that fresh, oxygenated, turning over water, chocolate milk looking stuff. In some fisheries, this will be bad. In southern reservoirs, in the middle part of the country, reservoirs that have this, it's not a bad thing. It's good. This is why you can't watch fishing videos about any fall fishing. If you're from Florida and you're taking this in and you try to use this information in Florida, it won't work. It won't. It most like for most places outside of the Mississippi River in Wisconsin, this probably won't work for you. It won't work in New York. You got to break it down specific to each area of the country. Now look at this. You see all that muddy water coming in there? That's a good thing. That's telling us a story. Let's look at the next slide. Okay. Now, all of these areas in here, look, I've got this big bay right in here that I could fish. See, there's laydowns back in there. I wish I could zoom in on that. You get all these little pockets, points. But what I like about this more than anything, when you zoom in right in here, there's going to be some shoals. See that white water in this area right here? Those are shoals. Believe it or not, you can get your bass boat, that 20-foot bass boat I'm talking about. I know for a fact that you can fish all the way to right up here. The reason that I know is because I done took my boat up there before. It takes patience. It takes research. 20-foot bass boat, at least to right here. Depending on the water levels, even up here to the second shoal. But you have to be patient. You have to do a little bit of research, and you have to use your electronics to be able to do that. What I mean by being patient, you don't come in here whoa Nellian at 80 miles an hour with trimmed up throwing a rooster tail 20 foot when you don't know what's out there in this knee-deep water. What you may have to do is just idle back and forth. What you may have to do is get up on the trolling motor, and this could take hours at times to find the channels. And then you mark waypoints on every depression on this flat going up to here. This is the dangerous section up here. All of this is safe. Come under the bridge, this bridge right here, 72 bridge, safe. When you get right around in this area, when you get around in this area right in here, things start to get a little sideways, boys. It looks, you won't see nothing, but it's 2 to 4 foot, which sounds like a lot of water, but if you got anything that's pushed up on a 2 to 4 foot flat, now you got 1.5 feet. 1.5 feet is not enough water if you have obstruction when you're on plane. It'll end bad. Take your time. Ease up. All of this flat area right in here, ease to that. All of this area that you see down here, ease to this. I've done it. Takes hours at times. But once you land, it'll be worth it. Push waypoints where you see where it goes from 1.5 feet to 2.4, 1.5 feet to 2.1. You'll put waypoints on there. You have a dot. And if you run all the way up there on your trolling motor, or if you run all the way up there idling and you don't hit anything, you know the next time, unless you have a rain event, you can go in there on plane. That's how you figure out how to access it if you have a big boat. If you guys are in your kayaks or whatever the case, you don't have to worry about anything. You just go mosey right on up there. But these areas, in addition to these shoals, look at all these little islands that I have to fish. I'll have current, I'll have laydowns, I'll have wood. I have all these visual targets that I can fish up here once I reach the promised land. I want to also talk about where you shouldn't put where not to fish. That's a little bit of an exaggeration. What I'm really trying to show you is when I say creek fishing, this is what's not creek fishing. And yes, those arrows somehow are not pointing where they're supposed to be pointing. So you're going to have to ignore them. I think I ended up enlarging the photo before I had a chance to move the arrows. So don't look at that. Okay. Places, this is where the arrow is supposed to be pointing. This is a creek, but this is I don't want to say it's a, if you wouldn't catch fish here, because obviously this is a hot area in the lake and people always fish here. I think this is called Cherokee. I forget what this one's called. Maybe that is Cherokee. No, that's not Cherokee. That's not important right now. The reason I don't like this creek is I don't see enough color change in the water, which tells me that there's not enough flow. So it's not my first choice. Will there be fish in there? Possibly. But I may have to fish a different way. The water's clearer. The water's going to be deeper. The fish are probably going to be more migratory in this area, which when I say migratory, they may move in the spring back in here to spawn and then out to the main lake and then out and then back in once it gets cold to the ditches and so forth as bait moves back into these pockets. I don't really want that in the fall. I want somewhere where these bass are born and where they can stay and have everything that they need to survive. Creeks and rivers put me in that situation. True creeks and rivers, and I can tell that by the water flow. This is a little too clear for me to start there. Would I fish it? Would I try it? Probably, but my first choice is going to be up here in the river where I know for a fact this water's stained, this water oxygenated, and this is a place where fish can be born and live their entire life cycle in this river. The other one I was trying to show you guys was actually Parksville. It's over in this area, or even this one right here. It's called Keg Creek, right here. This is not an area that I would put high on my priority list in the beginning until I found out new information. You can always change my mind. Listen, I'm a person, I will stand on business on my beliefs until I receive new information that proves that there's something else for me to consider. And so my initial reaction looking at this creek, if I knew nothing about Clarks Hill, this creek would not be my first one. I do know that you can catch. Looking at which means there's not enough flow. And I do believe fish closer to the main lake are going to typically be more migratory. Since we are in a season where fish are kind of caught up between they're doing a lot of things. I don't want to be where they're transitioning. That just makes me have to make more decisions. I don't want to be around the transition. I want to be somewhere where when these fish are up here in this river, they got to be on the wood, or they got to be on the wood. They got to be on the laydowns, or they got to be on the laydowns. When I'm over here in K Creek with clear water, with deep water and shallow water and a creek, they can be on the creeks, the docks, in the middle. They can be on bait. They can be on laydowns. They can be on grass. They can be on points. They can be on humps. They can be on shad. They can be on crawdad. They can be on too many freaking things. I don't want that. I don't want that. I want easy. Take me to glory up here in the river. That's what creek fishing is about. Okay? We're looking for this. We're not looking for this. All right? So this is what I was supposed to be trying to show you right here. See this? It is a creek in here, but I don't see the color change that I would like to see. It's not gonna be my first choice. See this? This is also a creek. I don't see the color choice. I don't see the color change. It's just not on my first priority. There are fish that live in there. There will always be fish that live in there. If I got a tournament, I'm going here first in the fall. I'm going there first every time. If I receive information that tells me there's a better option, I'll come here. Okay, so I'm going to take this off of. Actually, not. Let's see. What am I going to do? I don't even know what I'm going to do. I'm going to take y'all to YouTube right quick. So you can go to my YouTube channel, and you can find. Let's see. Let's talk about Brian Lambert, 10 Boat Mania. Okay, here we go, right here. So this is a series that I did. This series is called 10 Boat Mania, and this is literally me doing exactly what I'm talking about. This is literally. This video is probably. Let me look at it. This video is probably about 9 years old at this point. And at that point, I had been doing this exact thing I'm talking about for at least 10 years. So I'm like 20 years into this creek fishing thing now. I want to show you. I'm actually in this video. I'm going to be fishing one of the places that I talked about. And see, you can see how this. I was trying to show you. It takes a lot of work to get into these places. I'm not sure if it shares the audio.
No, they can't hear the audio.
Can't hear the audio. I'll turn it up real loud. You'll get a little bit in the. You'll get a little bit in the microphone here, but that's my boat that I used to use for doing this in the beginning, and having a. I know it's not realistic for everybody, and this is an old boat that I actually bought for $400. I turned it into. Didn't really have hands, and I gutted it and turned it into what you see right here. Just using scrap things and stuff you can pick up at Lowe's. I'm actually building another one here behind me. I've almost got it finished too. So if you have a bass boat, else first, because I learned a lot about my river by using this boat. You'll see what I'm talking about. You see, like this is a huge flat. You think all of this water back in behind me? You would probably think all of that is deep, and it's not. You got to know how to get fish. Well, okay, so let's stop. I'll get to something where you can see what I'm fishing. I want y'all to be able to see exactly what I'm fishing. I think right there, wood. That's not what I want you to see. You can find fish catches all over the internet. You can see this is also me trying to get into this area. This is why you don't come running in there on plane. Look at this. You see, you think all of that back out there, I could just run all of that. Well, no, you can't. Unless you like buying $13,000 lure units, don't ever run all of that. Why? Tough to get. This is a good idea of when you're fishing these creeks. Sometimes they have bridges in the back of them, and they're not very deep. Because a lot of these creeks they can be very shallow unless you're in the creek channel or river channel, and oftentimes they'll have a bridge or causeway at the back of them that seem very easy to overlook. The reason you don't ever want to overlook a bridge or causeway in any creek is because that is probably going to be the deepest water in close proximity to that creek. And there's always going to be life there. There's always going to be fish there. There's always going to be bait there. This river is really low at this time when I'm fishing it, and it's shallow to begin with. So you can see on this bridge pile, and if you look right there, you can see where the water level usually is, and you see it's probably 5 foot low, which is a sweet spot for our river. It's 5 to 7 foot low. But what it does is it exposes all this rock that you see. You see this bank right here. This is a creek channel bank because the river channel actually sweeps in right where my boat's setting. The creek channel comes in through here. It's not on the other side is really shallow. I might even caught a fish on the other side. But right here where the bridge is going to be deep from where they excavated to make the bridge. When they excavate, there's all type of rocks. There's wood. This also sits in a turn river. The turn, a lot of wood pushes up against there. There's actually a wooden, uh, like a we call them log jams. Log jams, just a bunch of wood that pushed up on each other. It's over here now. I don't think it was this particular year. You can see I'm just fishing, flipping a. We'll talk about it a little bit, but just fishing a undercut bank. You notice you don't see really laydowns or anything there. Just fishing undercut banks. Let's see. I want you to see exactly some other stuff. Let's see me fishing another bridge. That's me trying to put my boat in. There's fishing riprap again. You notice how you're seeing a lot of bridges and a lot of riprap in this video? It has a lot to do with what I said. Deepest water in close proximity. All right, so you see this? This is just a little bay. All of this is super shallow. All of this is, I don't even know if I can get this aluminum boat in there without having to try. But right along this riprap is a trough. All right, in this area right here, it's probably 4 foot in this trough. And all of these fish suck from this flat right over to this trough right by the riprap. Several fish right in that area. Let's look somewhere. What I want to show you really is the wood. That's fishing hard structure. I want to find. Okay, this is the clip that I saw looking at this earlier that I want to show you. These are the type of things that you want to look for in the river. Okay, this doesn't look like anything, but there's so much going on in this photo. This, my friends, my straight up fishing members, wake up, wake up. This is what you came to the show for tonight. This is it. This is what I live for. Okay. I talk about this all the time. If you ever did a coaching call with me, if you've ever me about the summer, one thing I've talked to you about over and over an hour. And so you get over there and you started fishing. This is a picture of what I'm talking about right here. So you see this little piece of wood setting in the water right here? It's in the middle of a flat. And you can even see there's a little dark spot right there if you're looking on the computer. If you're on your phone, you probably can't see it because it's pretty hard to see. And then look at all this little crappy brush pile right here. A crappy pile, a lot of things there. You got all of these little pieces of wood and stumps and stuff that's pushed up on this flat. And that, my friends, is golden this time of the year. I don't know why. Don't ask me why. You don't need to know why. Just know when you're creek fishing and you see these type of things, but the thing about it is you have to slow down. You have to look for it. You oftentimes you don't see this on plane until it's too late. You're probably either gonna hit it or you don't see it at all, you just run by it. But sometimes when you slow down enough, you see these little dark spots, you see these little stumps, you see these little crappy brush piles, sometimes just an aspirin bottle tied to a Christmas tree. There's almost always a fish on that type of structure when you're fishing in the fall. Almost always. That is creek fishing 101. I caught one right there too. I mean, I can show you. Y'all seen plenty of fish catches and y'all caught fish. I don't know. I don't really need to show you. I want to show you what to look for more than I want to try to show you me catching a fish. Here, when my internet catches up to y'all, I'm kind of rushing my internet.
Yeah, you cut out there for just a second.
Now, did I cut out? Yeah, my internet was showing out. It wouldn't even let my YouTube video load. So, laydown, when you're fishing laydowns in the South, you'll find something like this. This is a humongous laydown. The big mistake that I see people make fishing laydowns, especially in the fall, and especially while creek fishing, is kind of ditto. Just did a 3 casts, one out here to the edge, one in the middle, and then they go. First of all, when the water levels get low in the fall, which is the best time to fish these places, let me revisit that. Let me stick a pin in that, what I was about to say. When the water gets low and it's hard to get to these creeks, that's the best time to go. What some of y'all are going to say, well, the water level is 5 to 7 foot low. I know it is, Barry. It hasn't rained in a month in the South. It hasn't rained in 2 months. That's when you go to the creeks, is when it's low and it hasn't rained and it's clear. If it's raining every 2 weeks and it's turbid up there and the water's up in the bushes, you can't focus anywhere. There's going to be too much stuff to fish. When that water starts to get 3 foot, 5 foot, 7 foot, at times 10 foot low, that's when you go to the creeks. Why? Why do I say that? Because when it gets low, there'll be one laydown. Within a mile, 4 laydowns as far as you can see in this clip right here, you don't see other freaking laydown for a half a mile. This is a half a mile before there's another piece of wood in the water. Most people, when they're riding into a creek, they ride and say, there's enough for fishing here, so I'm going to leave. And then they get to a creek that has 87,000 docks in it. They say, I'm going to fish all these docks. You just made it hard for yourself. You just made it hard for yourself. That creek that you went in that had one laydown, that creek that you went in that had one dock, that's the one that you stop in. Okay, why do you want to do that? By golly, it's gonna be one on it. You can bet your bottom dollar, Bubba. When you fish these laydowns, do not make one flip here, one cast with your spinnerbait here, and then one here, and then one here, and then mosey on. There's nothing there, Bobby. Let's bring up our 250. Don't do that. You got to flip there, 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 there. Come back to the top. Every single hole during this period of time of the year, specifically, you have to fish like there is a bass waiting for you to pitch a lure in there. You have to act that way. You cannot afford not to pitch your lure at every single hole. You got nowhere else to go. You done made it in this creek. You're 10 miles in. It's going to take you an hour and a half to idle back out here or to run across that flat. You got to fish this stuff very thoroughly this time of the year. Every single pitch. That is one of the most valuable pieces of information that I've given you out of the last 45 minutes I've been talking. When you're flipping laydowns, when you're even docks, you're flipping any kind of structure, multiple pitches are essential this time of the year. Multiple pitches are absolutely essential this time of the year. You don't have enough to fish. It's been dry. It's not raining. There's only so much water covering the water. The cover that you do find, you have to fish. What a lot of people do, they'll throw their spinnerbait across this. They'll throw their chatterbait around this. They'll throw a buzzbait down the side of it. Maybe one at the front, and they keep going. You cannot do that. 20 or 30 minutes on it. You got nowhere else to go, Bubba. There's no more late. There's nothing to fish for another 30 yards, 50 yards, a half a mile. Fish this good and thorough. Very important for you to do this time of year. You have to do that. Don't just haphazardly run through this with moving baits. Never do that in the fall. Okay. What else? I don't think there's really anything else I wanted to talk about on that. Let's go to questions. Questions, comments, and concerns. I've been watching the chat. I don't think I saw really anything.
Yeah, I haven't seen any questions.
No questions. That can be good or that can be bad. Who knows?
So what kind of stuff are you throwing up in those creeks?
No questions could mean I did a good job teaching. That's where we got to go baits. So this is our last bullet point that we're going to hit here. Let me look here. I don't see anything. Okay. Let's talk about this. What are the baits we're going to be fishing when we're fishing these creeks? Y'all notice I did a lot of close range flipping Texas rigs. That's pretty much what I was doing. Very important for you when you're fishing these creeks. There's only a few baits that you really need to have on. It's going to be mostly power fishing baits, but I have grown to learn how to fish some finesse techniques in this environment too. Mainly a drop shot is a very underrated brush pile bait or lay down bait. It's underrated. Some of the stumps that you saw that I pointed out in the middle of the river that you couldn't see unless you stopped, those are good places for you to throw like a drop shot. Maybe even weightless. Am I getting fuzzy again, Michael? It looks like it is on my end. I hate when it does that.
Yeah, a little bit.
Look at me. Yeah, I'm on there. I'm by here by myself, and it does that too. So I know it's not my kids. These are the baits that I would encourage you to tie on. You definitely gotta have a Texas rig or something to flip. It can be a Texas rig or a jig. Those are gonna be my number one. Texas rig is my number one because it's more versatile in the fall time. In my experience, they really can get off a jig. They can get off the jig. My favorite bait is to throw is it going to be some type of hog bait. The Gremlin is a good one. That's why I designed it actually for this very scenario. That's one of the reasons. 10-inch worm, very untraditional flipping bait. A 10-inch curl tail worm. Killer this time of the year. I don't know why. You don't need to know why. You know how they say don't ask, everybody encourages asking questions? Don't ask me questions about it. I don't know why. 10-inch worm works really well. I love to have a spinnerbait tied on. Spinnerbaits are for your laydowns. Spinnerbaits are for covering water in between cover. I've had a lot of success with top water lures like a buzzbait, a popper, or a prop bait. Something work a little bit slower at times. And typically those baits work best where, especially if I'm fishing extremely shallow. Never discounting these creeks how shallow fish will get. Never think that a piece of wood is too shallow. Never think that a dock is too shallow. Never think that a rock is too shallow. If it has enough water to be considered water, chances are it's got enough water to hold a bass. I'm gonna say it again. If it's got enough water to be considered wet or to be considered water, it's probably got enough water to hold a bass. So if you can point at something and say that is water, in fact, right there, it's probably got enough water to hold a bass. Brian Barty can probably attest to that after fishing Champlain with a guy early this year in the BFL. If it's got enough water around it to be considered water, it's deep enough. And so when you get in those shallow situations like that, where it's that much water, the fish can set off a little bit deeper, which deeper can be, instead of this, that. They can set off in that and then pin the brim bluegill up against that rock, up against the laydowns. That's how they feed on prey. They love shallow water. You've seen them run up brim up on a dock or on a bank before. That's why they do that. So oftentimes when you're fishing that shallow water like that, a topwater lure is going to be a better lure for you, because when you flip a gremlin in there, it's got no water column to have action. And when I come across there with the topwater popper or a frog or something, I can keep it suspended in the water column. It just gets the bite a lot better. We talked about topwaters, buzz baits, spinner baits. You can have a chatterbait on. I don't really particularly like a chatterbait around wood. It will still catch the fish that I'm catching on the spinner bait, but the problem is I'm just going to hang more with it because I'm usually going to be fishing wood. If there's a situation where I could throw a chatterbait and not have to have it in a snaggy situation, it's a good choice. I feel like you're going to be more efficient with the spinner bait most of the time. If you've got grass or if you've got just clean bank, the chatterbait still is going to rule. I'll keep a square bill on. A square bill crankbait is another good crankbait, a good lure for you to have on in this situation. I've caught a lot of bass just cranking those riprap that you saw me show you around the bridges in the back of the creek, on mud flats, on little creek depressions. Sometimes, like you have a little pocket and it meets the main creek. You'll have a little depression. It's really shallow, 1.5 to 2 foot, maybe a half a foot to 1.5 foot. Those little transitions are good for throwing a crankbait. Okay? Lure selection is very, very simple. Something to flip, pitch it, laydowns, wood cover, isolated targets. Keep your finesse bait, a drop shot, a wacky, a shaky head. A topwater bait like a buzz bait, a popper, something of that nature. Now, miss one in my square bill. Everybody's got to have a chatterbait tied on, because who goes to the lake without a chatterbait tied on nowadays? You just have to. It's like the freaking stick bait of the hard baits. You know what I mean? So you got to have it. And that's all I got. That should give you some good information about how you can.
You still with me, Brian?
And catch fish. I see a question here. Let's go. Jacob Wilcox. Would it be worth my time and eternity to try to access these areas? Jacob, my God. I mean, let's dig deeper. Let's dig deeper here. What are your other options? Is it worth your time? And then I'm going to draw out a scenario. If you're asking me in a tournament, would it be worth your time? Meaning you're already in the tournament and the tournament is already happening and you haven't practiced that. This is not something that you pull out like a bag of tricks and go try to do in the middle of a tournament because of the risk factor. This is something that you practice, you intentionally do, you research, you go try out, and you scout yourself. Oftentimes in these creeks, the creek channel may not be exactly what's on your GPS. There may not be a creek channel, but there may be a small depression because of a wash that they've had a big. That's the best idea to try to do it in the middle of a tournament. Then my photo just froze. God dang it, I hate my internet some days. Did it just freeze there? I think it did, didn't it?
Yeah, you're.
I don't think it's a good idea to try this in the middle of a tournament because you need to research it. You need to go and try it. Oftentimes, these flats that you may have to idle or run across, they can change with flow in the creeks. I don't think it's the best idea to do it in the middle of a tournament. I do think it's a good idea for you to do it in a tournament if you put in the work ahead of time. I don't think it's a good idea to be like, well, we got 3 for 3 pounds at 12:30. I'm gonna go up the river. If you know the river, go do it. If you don't know the river, right, you could get into a lot of problems trying this because it does take time. This is a great question. Patrick Berry says, will the winter muddy water series apply here in the creek? Okay, so Patrick, yes and no. I do not like to fish these areas in the winter because at that point we're getting more rainfall and usually more turbid, too turbid. However, the principles that apply for muddy water fishing apply in all seasons. Winter, summer, fall, spring, whatever the case may be. When I have muddy water, the principles that I talk about in that video with the spinner bait and making the bait more bulky and moving water, all those principles are still going to apply regardless of the creek fish in the context that I'm talking about. Going way up the creek. It's the freeze.
You still with me?
So, yeah, I am. Did it freeze? How much of that you hear? I need to repeat that.
Yeah, maybe a quick recap.
Yeah, so Patrick, sorry about that internet freezing there. Long story short, all the principles that I talk about in that winter, gosh dang it, son. All the, oh God, what just happened there? Let's see here. Okay, let's see. Are we on there good now? Yeah, let's see us now. We look good. Okay, Patrick, let's try it again. The Russians we have Russian interference. They're after straight up fishing. Y'all are catching so many fish.
In all fairness, it has been a bad day on the internet. So
yeah,
like literally, it's been a big thing. Like the servers and stuff from Amazon have been down, a whole bunch of different tools. I'm actually glad that we were even able to get this far. So
yeah, I don't know why it does this. And then I'll do it another day, and it just works so good. And then some days it starts locking up like that. I had no idea. Patrick, let's take another swing at this. Patrick, what I was trying to say is muddy water principles apply in every season. The principles I talk about in that winter fishing video, it applies to every season. However, in the winter, when it's very cold, water temperatures below, I'm going to say even 55 degrees, I don't think this is a good pattern for you to try because at that point, there's too many better options on the lake. When we get in this weird period of water temperatures in the 80s to creek fishing is really good. That's when it shines. Let's see. I saw something. So Tron asked, what is my favorite drop shot bait? Probably an SMH worm is one of them. Z-Man also has one they discontinued called the long shots. That would probably be my second favorite. Just a pink worm, or sometimes I use a black or dark colored worm. 6-inch worm. I like a little longer one, but I like it still finessey. So like a 6-inch worm is going to be mine. But always a worm. Nothing goofy. Don't do none of this goofy stuff. Just a straight, thin finesse worm. 6 inches. I don't like the 6 inches.
See, Doc asked, do you remove the split rings that come on your crankbaits?
Oh, Doc Trez, yeah, do remove their split rings? Never off split rings. Again, there's two things you could be talking about. You could be talking about taking the split rings off of, maybe talking about taking the split rings off of your hooks. That's the thing right now is replacing the split rings on your treble hooks with braided line. That's a whole thing now. But no, I don't do that yet because I don't know how to tie the knot that you do it on. That allows these hooks to spin around complete 360 degrees, which helps you not lose fish. But I never take the one off on the line tie, ever either. So Barney says, up north, I typically downsize my baits a bit as we go deeper into the fall. Do you think downsizing baits in those creeks in the fall at cooler water temperatures? Okay, so Barney, down here in the south, I'm actually using bigger baits. And then that's so when I see like a spinnerbait is not a small. This is getting frustrating now.
Start over.
So when this is getting frustrating. Yeah, this is starting to get a little frustrating now. We went the whole live fine. Let me try this too. Let me cut off a couple things. Let me try this right quick. See if that helps. Close a few windows and see if that makes any difference. I don't think it will. I typically don't like to downsize my baits, Barty. I do so finesse fishing with a drop shot can be considered downsizing your baits, but I don't really like to do a lot of downsizing. You remember I talked about a spinnerbait, buzzbait. Like, look at this. The spinnerbait's not necessarily small. Look how big these blades are. And then you got a skirt. And this is a 3/4 ounce. Like, it's not really that small. So even the gremlin, that is somewhat of a compact bait. But then I just mentioned like a 10-inch worm. I don't really do a lot of downsizing other than if I feel like I do need to downsize, then I'll drop shot. This water is kind of stained in these creeks. So I do need to move some water to get the fish's attention. But oftentimes I'm not throwing very small baits. But my fall time this fall time for creek fishing is really we're not talking about cold weather, really. We're still talking about fairly warm weather as the days get shorter in the context of southern fishing. Let's see. So yeah, like Mactoon says, he uses bigger baits in the fall. Yeah, I don't really, in the context of this conversation with fishing in creeks, I really don't downsize. I don't. Those fish are, keep in mind, fishing in creeks are eating crawdads, they're eating brim, bluegill. Oftentimes not eating small baits. They're eating high protein things. So I don't really downsize that much. I don't really do that. Here, upgrading the internet. Let me know how you do that. If you can let me know how to do that, Henry, that would be great. Just to get hey Spectrum, I want to upgrade on the internet. Yeah, I'm sure that's how that works.
I think you have to move closer to Greenville.
Yeah. There's no upgrading, Henry. That's not how that works. You don't get the internet with air conditioning. Unfortunately, that's not how that works. I got one internet, and that's the one you get. That's just the way. This is just technology. We're just gonna have to deal with this until we come up with something better. I did want to fall back on what Barty was saying about smaller baits. Where you live, Barty, context is a little different. I think smaller baits does make sense in the fall for where you are. This fish, their fall time is like truly cooler weather. They're truly feeding on smaller things. For most of us here in the South, October, there's not a lot of these fish are it's still summer. The days have gotten shorter. Now, we did just get a little bit of two, but up until 85 to 90 every day still, and hot. This further reiterates what I mean by fall fishing videos have to be very specific to the area of the country and a type of fishery that you're fishing. For this very reason, that's a very good point you brought up there. Yep. And Barty, you're right. Trust me, if we have business internet, it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference. I wish it did. Okay. Yeah, see, Barney already says his water temperature is in the 50s. We'll bottom out in the upper 40s on a really cold season, maybe low 40s. Maybe low 40s. Places it can be most of the time we're going to stay in the upper 40s and 50s. Specific lake to give to so you can actually have valuable information about this. All right. We talked so much that we wore the internet out tonight. Oh, let's answer this. Let's answer this before we go. Brian Scott, he asked about, does water temperature matter? Brian, I'm going to try to give you the best answer I can give you. Water temperature matters, but it's not the first thing that matters. Water temperature matters when it comes to things that matter. Think of it as a pie. There's percentages in this pie that are bigger and smaller. Number one, as we go into the fall, is going to be photo period. Secondly, it's probably going to be, I would say photo period matters the most. Secondly, what would be the second most important thing? Probably the most important thing. And let's see. Am I freezing up again, Michael?
Yeah, we missed the second.
Looks like it is. Yeah, I was trying to wait till it cleared up. I don't know what to say. First most important thing is day length. Photo period is very important in the fall. Second most important thing, I would say, would be a mix of either water temperature or just weather. Cloudy, sunny, windy, rainy. I would say that would probably even be ahead of water temperature. It has a lot to do with fish activities, what the exact weather is of that period. You know what? I'm even going to put above water temperature. I'm probably going to put just the water conditions at that time. Is it muddy? Is it clear? Is it dropping? Is it falling? The water conditions of that time. And then I would put water temperature probably 4th or 5th. I would probably put that 4th or 5th on the list. But yeah, the current condition weather, I would put ahead of that. But all of these elements in this pie is what matters the most. All of these elements really matter. So I think that's it. If there's no more questions, we'll talk about this while I got a little bit of internet left before they cut off my internet. I guess I didn't pay the bill right or something. Quite a few of you guys went down to Guntersville last week for the Straight Up Fishing Fall Retreat. Like y'all had so much fun. I was so jealous that I didn't get to get in on that and do some flipping some grass and frogging and stuff like that. I've been seeing your pictures and videos in the app. Y'all keep posting those if you still have stuff. I want to hear about all that went down there, and then we're going to start talking about our spring retreat here very soon, and then also going to next year we're going to do double on that and do another fall fishing retreat. I think that's a good thing for us to build on. Thanks for everybody that set that up and for everybody that participated. Love seeing that. That's what this community is all about. Is y'all spearheading your own adventures, learning, getting out there, learning together. There's no better way to learn than with other anglers. You should be doing that, by the way. If you're in the app, pairing up with other anglers. I know Ken and Barty, they traveled. Ken Pfeiffer and Barty, they traveled together on the BFLs. They're two from two completely different states. I see Tim Dotson and Alex Sterling fishing together sometimes. There's been several people that have met other anglers through the app. So the app is a good place for you guys to meet other people to learn how to fish with and just have good friendship and fellowship. So keep doing that. That's what this whole thing is all about. And you're gonna shorten that learning curve the more you do that. Okay. All right, guys. Thank y'all. Awesome time. Definitely put in the community section if there's something that you're struggling with. I'm going to reiterate this tomorrow. If there's something you struggle with, throw that in the community section or on the private Facebook group so we can talk about it and put a class around it. Put some content around it. Have a good rest of your night. We'll go check on these youngins. Y'all have a good night. See you.
See ya.